Hello students, it's your history teacher. I hope you enjoyed your holidays as much as you could. And now you're all relaxed and can go back to the study. So I'm here with another online lecture. This one will be about industrialization of Hungary. We still have to keep in mind that the Hungary during this period is not area of modern day Hungary, but it also contains Slovakia. Čiže v tomto období je to Uhorsko a nie Maďarsko. I will mostly talk about the period from 1848 to the beginning of the 20th century. The presentation is just a background and it is from your book History is Not a Mystery, so everybody has it and can study with me, and I will just add some more important information, maybe some fun facts and explanations of that topic. So you can write, for example, translation of some words, explanations, and so on. You know it. This is our third online lecture. So let's start. The industrialization was basically one of the successes of the revolution 1848-1849, because there were many laws passed that kind of freed the situation. So it was liberating, at least in some points of public life. Also, the monarchy was trying to satisfy its inhabitants by doing a lot of things for them that can make their life easier. For example, the industrialization in many parts of their life. The very important thing that we have to mention in the beginning is that not every part of the kingdom was doing the same. You know, in the Habsburg monarchy, there was not just Hungary, so modern day Slovakia and Hungary. There was also Bohemia, Moravia, Austria, also southern states like, for example, Serbia, Croatia, and many others, Slovenia, and so on. You know, and all of these countries were on a different level. For example, Hungary, which is important for us, was very agricultural. It was from the history that this part of the region was chosen because of its fertile land, of its raw materials and natural resources, that we were chosen to be the agricultural part of the monarchy. Austrian and Bohemian part was chosen to be industrial part of the monarchy. So it was basically set like that. So we had no choice. So this was why in our territory before the year 1848 was actually not so much industry. So this is like quick background. You know, mostly the person who was behind this division was Maria Theresa, who did it for like the good thing. So she was trying to choose the places for some purposes, you know, so we were chosen to be the agricultural part. This is why at the beginning of the 19th century, Hungary was mainly agricultural country, and almost of its inhabitants were peasants working in harsh, feudal, and unsuitable conditions. The industrial changes deeply altered the situation in the country. So it was really huge success that was coming. We will start with the agriculture, because as I mentioned, we were mostly the agricultural country. So the production was more efficient, but agriculture was still not developed enough. The main progress started after the peasant emancipation, when the large farms were created in southern Slovakia. It's the most fertile part also today. But anyways, by the end of the 19th century, most of the Slovak peasants were still hard-working people that were using a primitive way of production. So they were not using, for example, industrial means that were already used in modern states, like for example Great Britain or the Netherlands or France. So even though it was more efficient, it was still not developed enough. So remember that even though agriculture was our strongest feature, it was still not enough in comparison to the Western developed monarchies. The next point is industry. So the 19th century brought the creation of many new factories because of also like the Industrial Revolution that was already running in all of the other parts of Europe. But there is a saying that everything in the monarchy, like Habsburg monarchy, we were 20 years behind the Western Europe. And when you look at it also now, it still can be felt. and it all started during the modern period from 15th to 19th century. We will mention more of different industries because there were more fields in which the industry was implemented. The first one will be the textile industry that became a traditional industrial branch since the era of Maria Theresa, so also before 1780. It was already there. But at the beginning of the 19th century, the home production of linen fabric was widespread in Slovakia, mainly in Orava. Linen fabric is basically canvas, to je v podstate plátená látka. Často teda je buď z bavlny alebo z lanu. Part of the linen fabrics were exported, and Lipto was, we can say, textile processing center in Slovakia, because there was also textile factory established in Ružomberok. The other industry with long tradition was metallurgy, which used modern technologies after the 19th century came. Its production was split into many small companies, and it was sold mainly in Hungary. So in Slovak part and like Hungarian part, speaking about today's borders. Metallurgy was mostly about working with different types of metals and making jewelry, making different tools out of metals. So it had also long tradition in our country before. But we can say the most important for us were the natural resources and raw materials. One of them was wood, and to work with wood was the old Slovak tradition, and connected to it was its transportation, and people like our ancestors found a smart way how to transport the wood, and this was to do it via raft, čo to znamená na ploti. 3 trunks bound together were transported down the river Vach. You know, Vach was really usually used for transportation because it's the longest river and it has also great direction. So it's coming from like the northern central Slovakia, and it's going basically all around the western part to south. So it was really used for such transportation, and it was quite extraordinary to transport it like that, and it's really old Slovak tradition. You know, our country is really rich for these raw materials and for the wood, and you can also see it nowadays that to have forests like we have is really precious, and also today our wood is sold abroad. You know, when I look into the mountains, I feel like we should take care of it more because it's so worthy and so precious. Anyway, I'm moving on, and the next industry I will talk about is food processing industry, which was part of our industry for the whole 20th century. It was important also during that time. Mills appeared, and many of them were small watermills in villages. So this was like the first types of the processing, so like not really industrial, but it was really the beginning of food processing, so how to make flours. But there were also the big ones which had hundreds of employees. Sugar mills started to produce sugar, but continuously replaced traditional honey originally used in the cuisine. So slowly this mill started to get in bigger and be more industrialized. Sheep breeding. This was really widespread in Slovak area since the Wallachian colonization in the 15th century. Wallachian colonization, you probably mentioned that during the second year, and this was when these people came mostly from Bulgaria, and they were breeding the sheep all around the mountains because we lacked the people during that period. So king invited these people to live in our territory and to do their occupation, to do sheep breeding. For example, the factories that processed sheep cheese were created in Liptovský Svätý Mikuláš and in Ružomberok. So again, Liptov was place where it was getting industrialized. You have also 2 names of the companies mentioned in the book, and it's Liptauer for the sheep cheese and also Stein and Makovitsky. So these are basically like the names of businessmen who established the company. Liptovský Svätý Mikuláš was also famous for the other industries. For example, tanneries. Do you know what is a tannery? Je to garbiarstvo. To ste, dúfam, už niekedy počuli aspoň po slovensky. Garbiarstvo, alebo teda koškári, čiže tí, ktorí vlastne spracovávajú kože. The leather processing, for example, was the famous part of industrial history in Liptov as well. So there were many families of fabricants, for example, Stodola, Žufa, Hubka. You don't need to remember these names. This is just for you to know that a lot of these companies were created as family business, and it was why it was named like that, after the name of the family who created it. We will stay still in Liptovský Svätý Mikuláš, where Armin Stark, who was a Jew, founded a famous distillery. You know, a lot of these businesses actually were founded by the Jews because these were people who were educated and they had the talent to make business. Really, they knew how to establish the company, how to organize different things about it, how to advertise it, and they really were taking care of the business. So really a lot of businesses in Liptovský Svätý Mikuláš. Again, I can revise it. It was distillery, tannery, sheep cheese factory. Also in the surroundings, the wood was transported and sold. So also that was part of the business around Liptov. And we will move to the capital, Bratislava. It had very special position in the Hungarian industry because it had really great location. You know, Bratislava, Budapest, and Vienna, this is so great and unique that these capitals are really close to each other because it's great for trading and for business. So the city had great geographical position. Also, Danube was flowing through the city, so it was easy for transport as well. Because of that, many famous factories were established there during industrialization. For example, Noble Dynamite Company, that was named after its founder, Alfred Noble. So it was basically like a franchise, so it was not a Slovak company, it was just established in Bratislava. Another one was Stolberg, that was famous German chocolate manufacturer. After some time was renamed to Figaro. And I suppose you really have to know this one. Okay, so our Slovak chocolate company, Figaro. And the last one is Cvernovka. In its building nowadays, it's usually used for some types of exhibitions, but it used to be factory. And can you guess what was made in this factory? Bola to výrobňa nití or thread factory. And we are slowly moving to the very last point, and this is transportation. So we already mentioned the transportation through the Váh River, but you know, this was not really the industry. So they had to come up with something else, how to transport the goods. And this was a horse car, a horse-drawn tram. It was basically a railway, but it was drawn by horses. And this connected Bratislava and Trnava. It was built in 1846, so in the very half of the 19th century, and the most important was railway construction. This was built between Košice and Bohumín, and it was made so by a private company in 3 years. You know, 3 years maybe for you sounds like it's long time, but can you imagine to build more than 300 kilometers of railways for 3 years with technology of the 19th century? Man, we can't build our highways in such time nowadays with our technology. So that's how it was. So you really need to remember these two railways, these two trails of them. So horse-drawn tram between Bratislava and Trnava, and the railway between Košice and Bohumín. This was made mostly for the connection between Silesia and Košice because of the metallurgy, so to transport the goods. Okay, so when I will just do really quick revision, I will want you to remember at least a little description about these parts of the industrialization of Hungary. And maybe when it will be better time, we can discuss the comparison of the industrialization of Hungary and of industrialization in Great Britain. So for now, it's enough for me when you will know that it was 20 years behind in Hungary. So I will want you to know to describe agriculture, textile industry, metallurgy, wood, food processing industry, sheep breeding, and transportation. So at least some, really in one sentence, at least one fact what you know about it. Okay. Of course, there were also a lot of other different industries. For example, arms industry, so producing of the arms, weapons. For example, tire making factory like Matador. It was established in 1904 in Bratislava at first, and then it was transferred to Puchov. So this was established because the first cars appeared in our country, but mostly the tires were exported. Also very important was glass factories, companies, for example, by the family of the Schreibers in Lednické Rovně. This one had huge success, and it was like #1 in Europe, the factory. So slowly we started to have really great factories in our territory. We had a really great amount of them. Maybe it could be interesting for you to find information about some factories that you know that maybe still exist or existed in your city or village. It would be great if you would let me know if you have such information. The very last thing that you should remember is that industrialization changed the main character of the Hungarian economy, and it basically changed the fact that we were just agricultural part of the monarchy, and Slovakia in fact became one of the most developed countries of the whole kingdom. Because now can you see that Lipto, for example, became great in industry, also around Bratislava, and there were a lot of factories all around Slovakia during that period. So it was really great for us in the end. But it took 50 years to improve the situation. But anyway, at least some time. Even though many Slovaks emigrated in the second half of the 19th century, it was mostly because in some part of the monarchy there were, we call it like starving valleys, alebo teda že hladové doliny. These were the valleys where there was no job really for the people. And in the industrialized country, there was no job for some of our inhabitants. And so they had to leave to search for better conditions. Mostly they left to France, Russia, and USA, which promised for them to live the American dream. You know, even though we were an industrial giant in Hungarian conditions, so in our part of the monarchy, Slovakia was still like an industrial dwarf compared to the Czech lands. So we were really developed compared to what we were before, but still it was not enough to be equal to the Czech part of the monarchy. Well, this will be important for me, that you will know the process of changing of Slovakia from the agricultural part to the industrialized part, why we were actually more industrialized than, for example, Hungary. Hungary, which is also nowadays Hungary, and why it was not still enough and the Czech lands were more developed than the Slovakia was. Okay, so for you to know this transition from one point to the another one. This topic I hope will be easy for you and also interesting. So it's just like giving us explanation maybe why is Slovakia also now the way it is, maybe also in comparison to the other countries of the former monarchy. So that's it for today's lesson. If you will have any question, maybe also about another factories and another industries, you can ask me, or you can send me some information if you want to share it with me. And if not, study on the regular basis still, because really this test is approaching slowly, but it is. Okay, thank you for watching. Have a great day, stay healthy, and bye.